Hi, folks, as people jump on, go ahead and throw your name and where you're from in the chat so folks can get a sense of who all's with us today. All right, I think more folks will trickle in as time goes on, but to stay close enough on schedule, because we all have a busy Tuesday, I'm sure, I think I'll turn it over to Taylor to kick us off.
Thanks, John, and it's good to see everyone virtually via Zoom. Thank you so much for joining us today, and the Rural Schools Collaborative team, John especially, for putting this event together. I know we're really excited to hear from everyone today. So before I kick it over to John, I just want to do a brief welcome and thank you from the Rural Schools Collaborative team. We have a lot of energy in our team around these rural teacher core efforts. But before I get into that, I want to share a quick slide to help frame today's conversation. So I know that we've got some rural teacher core veterans here on the call, but we also have some folks who are really curious about how to build these types of programs. So when Rural Schools Collaborative talks about what is a rural teacher core, here's what we mean, which is any intentional recruitment, preparation, or placement effort for rural teacher leaders in a rural community. And all that is to say, this is sort of internal language that we use around a rural teacher core, which is the idea of pre-service teachers coming together, going through sort of a cohort model, but getting excited about teaching in rural places. And this is supposed to look different for each region, and that's by design. So when folks ask, do I have a rural teacher core? You might, or how can I start a rural teacher core? Reach out to us. So we're really excited to kind of bring together in a small group of you folks together who are sort of rural teacher core stakeholders. But when we use that language, just know that there's a lot of different ways that you can have a rural teacher core, but anything that is an intentional program to recruit, prepare, or retain rural teachers is what we're talking about today. So there's all sorts of different models for this, some very advanced and well-established, some kind of in the middle where they're maybe in their first or second year of an intentional program of this sort, and others who are just really curious around what others are doing and how they might be able to bring this to their own region. So I'm really excited that all of you are willing to be here today to learn a little bit about what is out there and where do we go from here. So again, thank you from the Rural Schools Collaborative team. I won't steal too much of John's thunder, but we're really excited to have you folks here and looking forward to this presentation.
All right, thank you, Taylor. It's really not my thunder to steal here. It's everybody here, right? I really appreciate Taylor's overview of what a rural teacher core is, and it kind of ties into what I'd like to talk about. I'm a little bit of a sucker for history, so I want to kick things off with a bit of a brief walk through history of how Rural Schools Collaborative came to think of these programs. And it kind of informs how and why we're here today. So taking another big step back, actually, the idea of assembling a dedicated group of passionate and talented people to work toward a goal isn't really new, right? The core type model has a long history, and there's a beautiful diversity of these types of programs out there. For Rural Schools Collaborative, the Rural Teacher Corps model itself actually has its roots in the Missouri Ozarks with the Community Foundation of the Ozarks and the Rural Schools Partnership. The model that they spearheaded was to develop teacher leaders who act as catalysts for positive change in their communities. And this is done through rural-focused training, commitment to serve in a rural school, and organizing local funding to support the teachers in their new place. After Rural Schools Collaborative was established, we carried that solid foundation into 2 summits in 2015 and 2016, who some of you here today may have been at. And those summits really established a call to action around these programs and defined in our mind an adaptable model, as Taylor said, that fits any context and is, purposeful about training rural teachers for your particular place. So after that, this work began to share out this opportunity of this model to new partners who are really looking to purposefully engage in schools and communities all across rural America. Personally, what I really appreciate about this work and this history is that it's really the story of you all, right? It's the story of strong partnerships that make it work. It's people coming together with a common vision of making an impact for all of our rural hometowns that many of us come from. So with that, I really want to honor those partnerships and offer first a quick glance at the Rural Teacher Corps programs that we highlight on our website. So there is 17 of them, and the list continues to grow. And we highlight these through our Rural Teacher Corps page, and we have a small map there that also shows, the places these folks come from, as well as some other programs that we've talked to, that we've met, that are soon to be on the list, but not quite there yet, right? So today's meeting really follows in these historical footsteps of gathering, learning together, and collaborating to grow our individual and collective work forward. And as I've worked with some of you one-on-one to put this forum together, there's really been a 3-way focus that has of understanding that's come in my mind for what it is that we're doing here. On the one hand, this is a space for our peers, for us to come together and act as a learning community, to hear from each other and to share ideas. But this is also a time of celebration, right? Recognizing and sharing the amazing progress we've all made toward bolstering rural ed. And hand in hand, a third part here is that this is an opportunity to grow, right? Honing each of our individual work, as well as pursuing a path to becoming even stronger together. So my real hope today over the next hour or so is that we each have a chance to listen, to engage, and then to head back out inspired by the community celebration and growth that we find in this space. So with that, thank you so much. And I'm going to turn it back to Taylor for a little quick update.
I'm very excited. Some of you folks may already know this, but when we talk about the Rural Teacher Corps Learning Network, we like to call it a network with a little n, not a big N. So folks say, how can I be in your network? And it's like, well, if you're interested in this topic, here you are. Come join us, come join the conversation. But to that end, we have had some success over the last few years in trying to get funding to start a few of these programs, or not necessarily start, but support and launch. So we've had a few different donors over the last few years that are interested in supporting these types of programs. So we're really excited to share that last year. I'll go back maybe one slide here if I can. Nope. Yep. Okay. Last year, we had the Catalyst Grant Initiative, and you'll hear from one of those recipients today. But we had 4 higher ed partners who were looking to launch this type of work and said, let's do this together. How can we get this started? And so we have 4 unique different models from that Catalyst Grant Initiative. And the anonymous donor that helped support those through planning grants was so blown away by the work that these folks had done over the last year that they have agreed to help Rural Schools Collaborative continue to fund these types of Rural Teacher Corps efforts to launch new Rural Teacher Corps in different places. And so we are really excited to think about how this work is going to continue to grow. And we think that you all are a big piece of that. So I just want to share that small celebration that the work that you all are doing is not only having ripples for these groups here that are already kind of established, but rippling out into other folks who are interested in doing this type of work. And so it is our honor to kind of bring you all to the table and capture your good ideas. But also we're really looking forward to sharing how this network will kind of continue to grow and how we can continue to grow these models. So that's that's just a celebration I want to share to kind of kick off today and give a special thanks to our Catalyst Grant Initiative folks from last year. We have Morehead, University of North Dakota, University of Wyoming, as well as University of Wisconsin-Platteville. So their shining efforts, and you'll hear one of those today, are really helping sow the seeds for some funding to support new efforts in the future. So on that celebratory note, I will kick us back to John to talk a little bit about the snapshot for today.
All right, thank you, Taylor. I just want to quickly go through what we can expect today. So immediately when I'm done talking, we're going to have a panel of 3 exemplary programs from around the US that represent a diversity of places, people, and institution types, as well as longevity of their program. So first off, we'll have Susan Hester from the Black Belt Teacher Corps. She's the coordinator of the program from the University of West Alabama in Livingston, Alabama. Followed by that, we'll have Drs. Michelle Holschuh-Simmons, Associate Professor, and Dr. Tammy Prad, the Assistant Professor and Co-Chair of Ed Studies here at Monmouth College, and their Tartans World Teacher Corps from Monmouth, Illinois. And last but certainly not least, we'll have Dr. Chris Beckham, Associate Professor of Foundational and Graduate Studies in Education at Morehead State University in Morehead, Kentucky, talking about their brand new Appalachian Future Educators. So after they give about a 10-minute overview of their program, we'll go into a guided panel discussion with some questions that were pre-submitted, and then we'll turn it to some audience question and answer as well as open discussion. But throughout the whole process, please feel free to throw any questions or observations and celebrations you have. Taylor and other RSC staff here, including myself, will be watching the chat, and we'll be sure to get those down and ask folks. So without further ado, let us turn it to the panel. And Susan, are you and your students ready to take it over? Oh, I think you guys are muted.
There you go. There you go. Can you hear us now? Okay, good morning. My name is Susan Hester, and I'm the director of the Black Belt Teacher Corps program. And we've had some expansion, and so mine is now called the Black Belt Teacher Corps Teach for Alabama. Just as you said, where you start and then you grow. And so we've had really a lot of growth. And so I want to start off first and tell you about the history. And then I have 2 former students with me now that are teachers that are going to be able to discuss some things on the panel. But we had a great educational journalist, Larry Lee, who was speaking to a state senator in 2016. And he said, I see all this money that the state of Alabama is giving to Teach for America. Why don't we give money and Teach for Alabama, use our taxpayer money to Teach for Alabama? And that was the seed that started the Black Belt Teacher Corps. And through his leadership and his support, we were funded in October of 2016 with $250,000. And so we began, I had my first cohort, Haley, who's with me today, was one of those students during that first cohort. And so we have grown over time. To date, I have placed 38 teachers in 19 counties within the state of Alabama. I have 7 more that will graduate this May. So at the end of May, I think they most all have jobs now. My total will be 45. And our plan is to have a Black Belt Teacher Corps Teach for Alabama teacher in every county in the state of Alabama. And so just like John and spoke, and Taylor, our mission is to recruit and prepare the best teacher, place that teacher in an approved school, and retain that teacher. I have a contract that they sign with me that they will complete 3 years of teacher service in either the school where they did their student teaching or another school that is approved for service. And I have 100% still employed. And I can say at this point, I probably still have 98% employed where they began. And so I'm really proud about that. And I'll introduce Haley and let her tell you just her information. And I have another teacher student with me, and that's Danielle Worrell. They'll make a quick introduction and then we'll pass it along.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Haley Richardson. I am a teacher at the University Charter School here in Livingston, Alabama, on the campus of the University of West Alabama. Like Ms. Hester said, I was amongst one of the first of the Black Belt Teacher Corps program. And with this program, it has been a tremendous thing that has happened to me. One thing that really sticks out is the post mentorship after graduation and upon your first few years of working. As the panel goes on later, I hope to share with you all more about the things that it has done for me as far as my teaching career.
Okay, great.
Hello.
Danielle?
Hello, everyone. My name is Danielle Worrell. I am a second-year teacher in Scottsboro, Alabama. I like to say that I'm an old new teacher since this is a second career for me that I chose. I had great support at the University of West Alabama. I was there from 2019 through 2021, and they supported me during that first year with, especially in COVID and all the specialties that brought with me. I look forward to having the opportunity to discuss with the panel, the virtual mentorship that really was beneficial to me, as well as the professional development that was provided through this wonderful program.
All right. Thank you, University of West Alabama team. It was so great to hear from you. And Susan shared with Rural Schools Collaborative a report of a longitudinal study they had recently completed tracking their progress in Alabama. It is truly impressive. So I'm definitely excited to hear more about your programming and some in the questions and answers to follow. So
Can I tell you one more thing, John? Just to illustrate the support that the state of Alabama and the legislature and the taxpayers have for this program. My budget began at $250,000. It almost doubled after the first year that I had been here. And I'm hoping for this news pretty soon that it will have tripled from its original funding. And so it really is supported and recognized. And during the teacher shortage, it's been a great way to just train teachers and get them in the classroom.
that is absolutely fantastic. My continual hope for you all in that process, and I'd love to hear how that goes. Please let me know. I'll happily put a little news update up there for you.
Yes.
All right, let's kick it over to Team Monmouth College to hear about the Tartans Rural Teacher Corps.
Excellent. Thank you so much, John. And thanks to you, John, and to Taylor and the rest of the RSC team for organizing this, and to the rest of the people here. We appreciate your support and your interest. So Tammy Prad and I are going to be speaking about our program, which is the Tartans Program, and the Tartans stands for Teachers Allied with Rural Towns and Neighborhood Schools. And our program is similar in some ways to Susan's program that she just described, but in other ways, it's quite different in the sense that we are much, much smaller. So we are a small liberal arts college in Western Illinois. We have about 800 students at the whole college. And so obviously our program within that is much, much smaller. And so I'll give you just a little bit of history about it and try to briefly explain some of our program, and Tammy then will also do so. I'll share our website with you as well in the chat in just a minute. And we have a video and a couple other things there to share with you as well. But just in the interest of time, maybe we'll do that on your own instead of showing that. So this started in probably 2017 or 2018, when we were getting increasing numbers of phone calls from area districts saying, we want your teachers. We want graduates of Monmouth College, because graduates of Monmouth College are successful teachers in our rural area and they stay. Monmouth itself is a rural area, and we tend to draw a lot of students from rural areas, but though not entirely, we have a lot of students from Chicago as well. And many of those students actually want to stay in rural areas. And so we're finding that we were getting lots of phone calls from administrators saying that we needed to recruit and retain teachers in rural areas. So that got us thinking, and we decided to start this program. So in the spring of 2018, we had a pilot program with just 4 students. And the college, like many institutions across the country, our college has a day of giving where all of our alumni are kind of fired up and give money. And so our program was one of the focal giving platforms for that day in the spring of 2018. And I was not so optimistic. I didn't realize how much support there would be. And we got like $18,000 that day, which surprised me. I was thinking we were going to be getting, you know, maybe a couple hundred or something like that. And so we were really delighted, and that started us with our program. And then we built on that with other collaborations, a collaboration with Rural Schools Collaborative, also with Teton Science Schools. And I know that Leslie is here, and I appreciate her support as well. And then we were able to write some grant proposals to get some funding. Now, we were not talking about the kinds of money that Susan was talking about. We were talking about a few $1,000s here, a few $1,000s there. So we have about 10 students each year in our program total, so that we, you know, maybe we'll graduate 4 and we'll bring in 4 as well. And so we have 10 students total. And they receive stipends of $2,000 in their first year, which is usually their sophomore year, $2,500 in their second year, and $3,000 in their third year. And then we ask them to commit to teaching in a rural area for 3 years after graduation. We have monthly meetings that Tammy and I lead. As we have a range of things that we do in those meetings. We have readings that we do. So it's not quite like a class in the sense that, you know, we only meet once a month, but we discuss readings, usually a book or several articles each year. We have an advisory board of retired teachers in the Monmouth area who are big supporters of rural education. And we have those people as mentors for our students. And so we have them paired up to do some interviewing and some discussing and some support. And then we ask our students to create a vision statement in which they explain what is their vision for being a teacher leader or a teacher visionary in rural education. And we started that as posters. And then because of COVID, we switched those to videos. But then we thought, you know what, they both actually have some value. And so we are actually implementing both of those. We have students first do posters and eventually do short videos. And I'll share my the website in the chat there. And at your leisure, after this session, you can see that we have an example of one of the videos there by Danny Hagens, who is going to be student teaching next semester, and she is a history student. And then at the bottom, we have one of our examples of a poster by Cassidy Johnson, who's an elementary student. So Tammy, if you want to take it and explain the other things.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Let me just add to a couple of things that Michelle talked about, and this makes you know, what perhaps is most unique about our context in our program. One of the things that we were lucky enough, we had a donor also in our first full year of our teacher corps donate some funds to allow several teachers in our area, several faculty members, and several students travel to Teton Science Schools and really help us to kind of fast track in an immersive experience into place. And I think that was extremely helpful. It gave us, you know, a solidified, especially our faculty in the power of this kind of learning, teaching and learning. And so a lot of the structure of our teacher corps, we have taken from that Teton science place triangle of economy, culture, and ecology, and we use that throughout all of our teacher courses. So not only does our teacher corps get a full infusion of it and use of it, but it's also throughout all of our coursework at Monmouth College. We were lucky enough to have John in part with RSC do some research for us on, the first couple years of our teacher corps. And he did a lot of qualitative analysis along with some surveys and different things, and helped draw out that what we were doing was really having an impact in 3 different areas. And the big narrative that our students that were out in the field now teaching was that idea of empowerment. And 3 threads that came through there were the power of place, the power of relationships, and the power of narrative. And so we've taken that and we continue to run with that. Michelle mentioned that we have videos that they do and interviews and posters, and that's done also on campus here during a Scholars Day, where we really have created an environment where this is highly academic work. This is serious work that we do in building the narrative of rural teachers. And so they present their work in a way that's academic to the community. Other ways that we want our students to not only think about their vision for themselves and as teachers in their communities, but we also want them to be able to articulate that right out of the door of Monmouth College and while they're here. So they have sat on panels like these as well. They have met with legislative and congressional representatives in our area about the need for teachers and to voice aspects of the assets and the needs of rural areas. They have attended school board meetings where they have talked about the work that they have done in the schools while they are here at Monmouth College. One of the things that we have built with relationships is we have an educational garden and farm that our students and we use as an educational setting where we have school groups and after school groups and different organizations use it in an educational way. And we also are building what we call our site schools. And our site schools are those that, one, we work really hard to build relationships with for our our rural teacher corps students, that they have experience there, that they are also part of our network with Teton Science Schools. And what we have seen now is that over the last couple of years, we are starting to have several of our graduates, not only from our teacher preparation program, but also our rural teacher corps cohorts are now teachers there. And so we're kind of building up, from the ground up, the teachers that are going to be, the leaders and the visionaries at those schools as well. And let's see, I'm trying to think. Oh, another thing that I think has been maybe somewhat unique, I don't know, you can all share, but we in the last, over last semester have also had at least over 30, which is a lot for us, of our students have their short-term emergency sub-licenses, and all of our rural teacher corps students have their emergency licenses. And so that was a way to, one way where they could immediately see that there was a need and start to practice, what are the assets and how are the things that they can contribute while they're still in their program to the community and the schools in our area. I think that's, oh, the other thing I would say that's unique, I believe, to our situation here is we are a small rural area. But our most direct school district is very diverse. There are probably close to 30, certainly over 20 different languages in the small school district. And so I think that's it's been really great for our students to see that different narrative of the diversity that is found within rural communities and districts. Michelle, did I miss anything there?
I don't think so, but people are welcome to ask us questions. I'm sure that we overlooked some things in our brief comments, but we appreciate your interest and are happy to answer any questions during the panel time.
Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle and Tammy. Just wanted to say Monmouth Rural Schools Collaborative maintains some administrative offices at Monmouth College, and Michelle's actually right next door. But it is very exciting when we come into the office every day to see the wall with the Tartans members, displayed for all of the college students to see as they walk by. It's just another little shout out to the incredible work that they've put on and the commitment they have for rural places. So I'm excited to hear you all today. And last, and again, certainly not least, let's turn it over to Dr. Beckham down in Morehead to see how Appalachian Future Educators is coming along.
Thank you, John, and thanks to everyone for allowing us the opportunity to share with you today. Thank you, Taylor, also for making it possible for us to be a part of today's event. As John shared with you, my name's Christopher Beckham, and I'm the director of the Appalachian Future Educators Scholarship Program. That's a long title, so we've shortened it very lovingly to AFE. So we are the AFE program here on campus. And we're one of the newcomers. We started this program in 2021 as part of a renewed commitment to our historic mission as a teacher training institution. Of course, we're a regional comprehensive university in the northeastern quadrant of Kentucky. But in 1922, 100 years ago, we began as a normal school. So we see the AFE program and our Rural Teacher Corps as a way to reconnect with that mission and also renew our commitment to our historic service region. Many of the universities in Kentucky have an assigned geography that they are particularly active in and responsible for. Of course, we have students from all over the country, all over the world as well. But we wanted to make this statement to our historic service region that we are renewing that focus on teacher training and commitment that we have to them. Morehead State University has a 22 county service region, and all but one of our counties are in the Appalachian region and are recognized by ARC as Appalachian counties, and most of them are economically distressed counties. So our institution has made the commitment to provide a renewable 4-year, $1,000 scholarship to up to 22 students per semester. And that corresponds to the number of counties we have in our service region. So we ideally will be able to identify one highly qualified student from each of those counties and recruit them and have them come and study teacher education. We will admit students to any of our education preparation programs. They can also be an early elementary education major as well as secondary. There's no distinction that we make there as to what they have to study in this program. The basic concept of AFE is to work with students and school districts and school leaders within the service region to come to MSU. It sounds like a broken record, but our region is no different than most of the rest of the country in struggling to fill open teaching positions. So this is a concerted effort that we're making to try and help provide graduates for our region. We utilize a cohort model, as has been highlighted today, and we do believe that is an exceptionally important aspect of successful rural teacher corps. We've been intentional in adopting that model by learning from some of our peers and colleagues who are on this call today. The students begin their cohort experience by participating in a specially designed first-year seminar course. We require all incoming students at Morehead State to participate in first-year seminar. But what's unique about the AFE cohort is they are in a section of FYS with other AFE students, and only AFE students are in that cohort. So they really have the opportunity to get to know one another, recognize their participation in this program. We don't make a tremendous amount of demands on these students in terms of requirements. We look for a grade point average of 2.75, which is what we have for our teacher education program. So we've tied that expectation to admittance to the TEP. We conduct monthly mentor meetings with each of the students. Sometimes we'll do that in a group setting. Sometimes we'll do that one-to-one. And we also have a special speaker series and other enrichment activities that they're asked to participate in across campus. Just to give you a highlight of what we've done with the speaker series, in the fall semester, we had a local superintendent who is also a 3-time Morehead State graduate, to come back, talk about his journey into teacher education. He's one of the youngest superintendents in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and he had a very unlikely path into teacher education. He was really able to make a wonderful connection with our students and encourage them in their journey. We've had a high school principal, a highly recognized high school principal from within our service region, talk about the challenges and opportunities in being a rural educator. And then in the spring semester, we shifted the focus to have a discussion for our students about the past, the present, and the future of teaching in Appalachia. For the past, we had someone come from the Kentucky Humanities Council present a Chautauqua program about a famous Kentucky educator in rural Kentucky, rural Appalachian Kentucky. And then in March of this year, we had a nationally recognized expert on place-based education come and present a lesson on outdoor classrooms, how to organize them, how to utilize them, and place-based education with our students. And we also opened that up to other education students on our campus and had really good participation and turnout for that. One unique feature of Morehead State is I think we're the only campus in the Commonwealth of Kentucky that has our own lake. And so we had this place-based education opportunity at Eagle Lake, and that was a really unique opportunity. And then in April, we're very fortunate to be able to have the Commissioner of Education in Kentucky come and speak to our education students about teaching in Appalachia and the whole Commonwealth in the future. We really work to build an identity with our students as AFE scholars. Some of the small things we do to help them with that is we presented each one of them with a t-shirt. We encourage them to wear that to our events, and then we take a group photograph and we try to include that in all of our publicity. But it's really to increase the awareness of this program campus-wide and region-wide. We also organized a student organization for our students that every cohort that we admit will be able to take part in, and we include a service project as part of the student organization. So it does provide them with outside of classroom fellowship opportunities, but it also has a service component, and they've done things as varied as redecorate some of the bulletin boards in our education building to they're going to be participating in a Build a Bed project that is part of AmeriCorps later on this month. So they're very active. They're becoming very visible on campus, and we want everyone to know who our AFE students are. I would just like to close by saying the administrative support that we've had for this program has been very important. The program began as an initiative of our Volcano College of Education dean. He then went on to become our provost, but he has continued to be very supportive of AFE. Our current dean, April Miller, I believe is on this call, and she has been extremely supportive of the Appalachian Future Educators program. So I'm very grateful for that. But also, as has been mentioned, we were very fortunate to receive the Catalyst grant from the Rural Schools Collaborative, and that really gave us a foundation that we could build on and really promote the program, reach out to some of the different speakers that we brought on campus. So all of these pieces fitting together has really made for what we hope and believe has been an extremely successful first year. And I just submitted the second year's cohort list of applications to our financial aid and foundation for review. So I'm excited for year 2 to come around. And I look forward to hearing some of your questions today.
I wanted to pop in real quick before we get to the panel piece and just reflect that it's so exciting to have you 3 groups represented here, not only to show that Real Teacher Course can be big, they can be well-funded, they can be well-established, they can be small, and I think it's just exciting for me to see how each of these are really working in their various communities. But the one piece that I'm hearing over and over from each of you is that they're responsive to their community, right? They're place-based. And I think that's some important context for our conversation today, is that it's not just about preparing great teachers, because that is one piece of the puzzle, but it's really about where those teachers go after they graduate, which is back into these communities. So when we talk about teacher leaders, right, we're not just talking about folks who are showing up in their classroom, but they're getting to know their kids on a whole new level, and they're bringing this new energy into rural places. And so when we think about our work at Rural Schools Collaborative and how those new teachers coming into these spaces who are aware of their place, they're aware of kind of the history, and they're able to kind of become these really engaged citizens, that keeps us really inspired. And you start to see that pay dividends over and over and over into these rural communities. So I know we will have more to talk about this, but from the Rural Schools Collaborative perspective, it's just such a joy to hear how each of these programs are so unique, but each are so responsive to their places and to the rural communities that they serve. So John, I'll kick it back to you. Thanks for giving me just a second to be on my soapbox. I'm really excited for today.
Yeah, not at all. It's such an important soapbox, and I was actually going to say the same thing. So I'm glad that you said it instead of me. But it's so true, right? Listening to all three of our panelists give their introductions, something that has stuck with me ever since I started with Rural Schools Collaborative and working with these types of programs is that, the common vision that begins, that like plants the seeds for these programs, but then really unites all of us here, is that we're doing something that is so responsive to where we live, where we work, and where our students come from and where they go. Right. So like with that spirit moving it forward, it's exciting to see the diversity of projects that come out of, that's just that one common vision. So I'm excited to hear more. Chris, never underestimate the power of a t-shirt. They are an effective tool. So I'm excited that your students get those. And I loved hearing all the new updates from AFE as time's gone on. I'm looking forward to more. All right, so I'm going to kick it over to some question and answer session here. So again, feel free to pop up any questions, any comments, observations y'all have, and we'll be sure to get them out. And I'm actually going to start with breaking the script a little bit and ask a directed question to one program, just because I'm curious. For Haley, Danielle, and Susan, what does a day in the life of a member of the Black Belt Teacher Corps look like in the program? What are some of the things that you all do?
Okay, and I can talk about undergraduate, which is different than those that have graduated. As an undergraduate, you can you apply for the program when you were a junior, at junior level, and they receive at a minimum $2,500 each semester. And so during their semesters of undergraduate work, most of them are doing field experience in rural, in the University Charter School, which is connected to our College of Ed. But I try to have virtual meetings with them. Pre-COVID, we were able to have a lot of workshops on campus. And so you've got to remember, I'm not only addressing my own campus students, but I have a huge enrollment that's online. And so once COVID hit, I then began to think we've got to start to look at things virtually. And so we tried to have workshops for them. I'm still connected to all of them, and I have different expectations for all. When they first graduate and are teaching, they have the opportunity to complete a community service project. And so if they choose to do that, then it's a lot of conversation of what are you going to do? What is the purpose of that? How can it be sustained? Then when they move into their, they pass that first semester of teaching, then they move into a virtual setting with a virtual mentor. But we stay connected virtually. We email back and forth. Most of us, like even though Danielle lives in Scottsboro, I've traveled halfway, we'll meet halfway and swap equipment. We have a lot of video recordings. I've provided each one of them a swivel and an iPad so that they can show their teaching. The undergraduate coursework is very place-based. We too spent a lot of time at the Teton Science School, and I want to say it was in 2018. And so even as far back as 2017, we were looking for professional development. And at my previous job, just in a district, I had always aspired to know more about the Teton Science School. And so we've had a lot of that underlying our undergraduate training. And then once they get into the real world of the classroom, I try to provide them with professional development experiences that are very hands-on, very applicable, and provide them that what they need for longevity. Because I know that we've all been teachers, and especially at this time of COVID and accountability, it is difficult to remain in that classroom and to be have the spirit that you need to accomplish that mission. And so I try to be very practical and thoughtful in the sort of PD that I provide them once they leave this little cocoon of the undergraduate black belt teacher course. And in addition, some of my online students that are through Alt-A, they're already in a classroom. You're able to be hired in Alabama if you are in an Alt-A program and you have 3 years for certification. And so for those, they're still in what I would think of as an undergraduate program, but many like Danielle are mid-career changers. And so I have this huge variety of learners and teachers that I'm just trying every way that I know how to fill the niche that is important and applies to them. And in terms of even their location across the state, you know, they often see, if you've seen one rural school, you've seen one rural school. Well, with the exception of about 4 large cities, the entire state would really be deemed rural. You know, Alabama has pockets of these metro areas, but then once you leave that, it turns into rural. So our rural looks different for every teacher. And then Haley.
And I'm just going to talk just a little bit about place-based. Like she said, in undergrad, we were getting kind of basically introduced to place-based. And that when we went to the Teton Science Schools back in 2018, that opened my eyes up to place-based, especially just being hired before graduating at a school that was going to be focused on place-based education. So with the Black Belt Teacher Corps, we were able to visit the Teton Science Schools and be able to go out to the community schools. And I was able to, I kind of had a foot ahead of everyone else who was going to be working at the school that I now work at that was just about to open in the fall of 2018. And so we were able to visit in 2018 of May. And I was able to get a step ahead by seeing what place-based really looked like. Now here in Livingston, Alabama, no, it doesn't look exactly like Jackson Hole, Wyoming, but place-based, it happens right here. Our thing that we kind of focus on here in Livingston is embracing your place. And just to kind of tell you about Livingston, it's a very, very small town, not very much to choose from, but there's so much here that many may take for granted, but we're able to teach our students how to embrace it and embrace the opportunities that this small town has. And by having that professional development with Black Belt Teacher Corps and undergraduate, I now work at a school, like I said, that is partnered with Teton Science Schools. And we have also received as a school professional development from those from the Teton Science Schools, as well as some of our faculty and staff will be able to go and visit. So I've already seen it, but I'm able to go and see it after I've been here and already have put some things into place. And one thing with the Black Belt Teacher Corps, having that professional development in undergrad, we were able to gear up and get some projects started here within our community. That's one thing I can say that has really helped me as a teacher. I grew up rural, and that's all that I really know. And so starting here at the charter school and here in Livingston, we've grown as a community just by being able to get out into our community with our students and showing them how valuable our place is. And one project, just for example, was headed by several teachers here at our school, and it was a community, well, that's not necessarily a community graveyard, but it was a graveyard cleanup. And the lesson from it was to get the kids to realize the difference in the graveyard. One side of the graveyard was divided, where you had all whites, and the other was divided where you had all blacks. But just to see that and to see how our school came about by growing and coming together, and how segregation, many may think, oh, that ended years ago, but it still is really going on today, really. And just to be able to teach them and have them go out in the community and realize that and see how much they can change right here in a little town like Livingston, Alabama.
Danielle?
My experience, again, as I was a completely online student, and so the Black Belt Teacher Corps, a lot of times their professional development and their trainings would bring me to campus where I normally would never have gone. It's about 4 hours from me. And so opportunities were provided through training financially, and just to feel part of a community, to meet people in person, to put a name with the face of someone that you email. And so those I take away just as important as the professional development. We had the Kagan collaborative training, which was great. I'm a special education teacher, and so that is always a great benefit. I did meet Miss Susan. I think we met in the parking lot of a place halfway. And
I think we did too.
I was given a stack of books because Dr. Wong is never wrong. And so I was given updated. And so everything I need to know is in that book. And several others that first year teachers could need. I was provided an iPad. I had a virtual mentor, and I was provided an iPad and a swivel. So I wasn't just given a virtual mentor. That was truly invaluable to me during that first semester, second semester teaching, when COVID and kids were coming back and it was half blended virtual and no one really knew. My mentor teacher here was overwhelmed. I was able to have that other resource of a mentor teacher that was, Keisha was just so amazing to me. And I was able to talk with her. And a couple times I even asked for an additional meeting because I felt a little overwhelmed, and I had that great support. So I felt supported, not just through an email, but just I was given the equipment that I needed, the opportunities that I needed. And I also took my PD also included, we were given the 2 PD to take. I chose differentiated instruction and special education and technology, and I was able to complete those courses and be and just learn more and delve really into teaching. And so I felt supported virtually and in person. And I know there's so many more opportunities that probably limited Miss Susan because of COVID, because she was always planning something for us and ways for us to get together. So I really feel that her wings were clipped a little bit, because I can't imagine what more we could have done if she was given the go ahead to bring us. She was always trying to bring us together and take what we learned in those opportunities, those PDs, and take it to our school and our community. And so I'm always grateful for that. And my school, Scottsboro, is by Huntsville, about 14,000 people, and we're the biggest city in our county, and it's the biggest county in the state. And so it's, it all is looks a little different, but we were able to take what we learned and bring it directly to our schools.
And that's what I've learned too about even mentoring these students. Of course, I provide them financially, and I've had some that have had to have a continuance of a semester. I try to do the best that I can for each one of them, but it's just like each one of us on the panel today, we bring our own background, we bring our own thoughts, and they have so many different needs. And so I really try to be super personal with them. I'm sure as it grows along the way, the control person in me will have to let someone help me. But at this point, I still maintain a personal relationship with every student that has gone through my program. And I'll even have them reach out to me individually and say, I need this, or I'm feeling like I'm not prepared for this. And undergraduate or even a teacher that's in the field, I think that the best that I can always do is help them meet the need that they have, because I really want them to be the best teacher they can be in the best community. And I love the fact that almost 100% have homesteaded in the very school where they began teaching. And we know as teachers, if I can get you to homestead, for 3 years, chances are we build relationships. We like to stay, with our family that we create. And so I do think that's one of the big benefits of the Black Belt Teacher Corps, is that it gives you almost an identity that you can say, because they're always proud to say in any presentation or anything that they do, oh, and it's on everyone's resume, I'm a Black Belt Teacher Course student. And so I think that that is a vital part of it, is to give them an identity. And we've had times when we've all tried to meet together on Zoom, and I just find that so many of them need individual things. We do have book studies with beginning teachers, and we have those at undergraduate, and they do their coursework and community service. But as we grow and I see these individuals in individual rural settings, as Danielle said, everyone is different. And so one of my main goals is I try to be supportive, not just of the whole, but of the individual as much as I can. Because sometimes they're the only teacher in the school.
Right. No, I appreciate that. And there's a lot in there I wanted to riff off of that actually leads into some of these other questions. One thing, Danielle, that you had said that I want to start with actually is, this idea of, how do you stay connected with folks? And it ties into with what Christopher was saying about how intentional they are about building their AFE cohort. So a question to all the panelists, and feel free to hop on in whichever order you feel compelled to do. How do you cultivate that community among your participants? And I'd say a part two is, how do you stay engaged with your alumni for your program?
I will say Miss Susan doesn't let us be forgotten. She again, I've just known her COVIDly, and so I can't imagine what she's like, what Miss Haley gets in the blessing that she gets of her. But it's constant emails, like she said, it's group, it's, hey, let's do this training, let's all come together. We're gonna put you up, and we're going to feed you, and this is where you're gonna be, and we're gonna offer. And it's not just, and I loved what was said, it's not just a checkbox on an application. I don't just put Black Belt teacher check like you do maybe an honor society. This is something that is personalized and individual, and it's emails, Zooms, opportunities. Hey, loves, this is going on. Thinking of you, would love, I think you'd be great at this. And so she really does individualize supports for us. And again, I can't imagine Miss Susan pre-COVID, because I honestly wouldn't be surprised if she showed up at my classroom door. And so
I
4 hours away.
I kind of just want to add to that, like she said, now I knew Ms. Hester pre-COVID. So me and her have had this connection, this bond since day one. And it's been awesome. She's been there, like I have the luxury of having her literally up the hallway for me. So but for those who don't, I feel like everyone still has that connection with her. If there's a day that I just need to vent, she's there. She's always there and supporting. And like she said, she's meeting our needs, everybody individual. And so it is very so personalized, especially with the virtual mentoring, just to touch a little bit on that. She really was very intentional about that for each and every one of us. And the program we went through with the virtual mentoring, it was set up so that a person could reach you and fit you specifically. And my mentor that I had at that time, I still can reach out to her, and she's very supportive. So Black Belt Teacher Corps has really been great. It's like she said, it's not just something you can check off. I'm pretty sure a lot of people in schools are in different programs and things like that, and they just say, oh, I was in this or I was in that. But I'm very proud to say that I was a part of Black Belt Teacher Corps, and that I have the experience and the opportunities that it has created.
Tammy, I think I had your hand raised.
Yeah, I admire Susan, you so much, because you have so many, the distance and the different types of students, and that's amazing, the way that you're kind of keeping, everybody connected in that way. I feel like we have a much easier because we are an small undergraduate college, and with a lot of history and a lot of already built in love of being, a Scot. And so this is, again, I agree, our students have the identity of being a Tartan. And in fact, when we have our graduates come back and talk with our current core, or are invited back, they're on panels for Meet Monmouth type events as representatives, they still consider themselves Tartans. It's kind of like once a Tartan, always a Tartan. And so we have, ideally, many of our students are right in this area. And so they are excited to be asked to come back and talk and be on panels and participate and work with our current teacher corps. And we take advantage of that. We really do. I hope that doesn't sound bad, but we take advantage of the fact that they are really committed to the college, and they want to come back and share, about their experiences. And so we've piggybacked on that spirit with our teacher corps, and really include them in a lot of the things that we do widely for the college, with specific aspects of not only the rural teacher corps, but also our other rural initiatives that we have going on. And so I do agree with the whole identity and wanting to be a part of that cohort. We have small class sizes, and so students often travel along in a cohort anyway, which is helpful because even those that are not in the rural teacher corps, they find themselves working alongside all of our alumni as well. And so we feel like we're kind of reaching, out with tentacles in different areas through our rural teacher corps graduates as well. So I really admire you, Susan. You have a lot going on there. And but I do agree that that identity is important, and it's great to see now, as you probably do, year after year, we have many more that are several in a school, you know what I mean? And they can find support in each other as being part of the rural teacher corps from their respective schools.
Tammy, I'll just jump in and follow up with just a couple of notes, but I would agree with everything that you have said. As Tammy said, we are a small community, a small college within a small community. We only have about 10,000 people in the town of Monmouth and about 800 in our college. And so there are a lot of other small towns in our region, and we are pretty well connected to teachers and schools in the whole region. And also, just personally, I'm in schools all over the place, let's say for my own children's Scholastic Bowl meets and those sorts of things. So just as an example, a few weeks ago, we were in a school east of here about an hour and a half, and one of our rural teacher corps students, who is a graduate now, who teaches there, I saw her classroom, so I wrote a Post-it note and stuck it on her door. Of course, I was there for a Scholastic Bowl meet, after school, but she got it the next morning, and we're connected through social media as we are with many of our students. And so, she was excited to see, my little note on the outside of her door. I also see a lot of our students at, our kids' baseball games, and, their athletic directors or PE teachers. And so, or other teachers. So we see each other, probably more than would be possible in a more sprawling region, or maybe in a place with more people. But so I think there's that. And also, as Tammy alluded to, we have a really strong alumni base, and they have a strong affinity for the college. And so students tend to come back once they've graduated. And so we see people pretty regularly, but then we also invite them back for our monthly meetings to speak. And we've had them do some videos, about their experience as Tartans that Tammy and I were able to use in a presentation that we did, and those sorts of things. So we probably are nowhere as extensive or as organized as Susan is, but we do things in kind of small ways, I would say, in more informal ways.
I could chime in with a sentence or two and just say we're at a little bit different place because we're a new program, so we don't have any alumni yet, but the first year seminar has really been an integral piece of our plan, and we promote on-campus events every class meeting. And I've noticed that a lot of the cohort will say, hey, let's get together and go to this game together, or let's go to trivia together. So they're building friendships within the cohort that would be more difficult to do once they get out of the first year seminar, because they're all going to be going in their separate directions for their different teaching areas, and they won't have classes together. So that's been a very integral piece. And our first year seminar is taught by one of our professional advisors from the College of Education. So we're able to provide them with pieces about how to navigate entrance into the teacher education program, as well as just that general orientation to university life. So they get a little bit of a double dose of how to navigate this new college experience, which is we look for first generation college students in particular for this program. It's not exclusive to that, but we do have some who are first gen college students. So we try to break down as many barriers as we can for them to acclimate them not only to this process of becoming a teacher, but understanding how to make the most of their university life together as well. And just one real quick follow-up on that, we had a really effective peer leader in our first year seminar who was so inspirational. One of our education students, who was an education student before AFE was created, but a former student of mine who was the peer leader in our first year seminar, who was so inspirational. I think we had 4 or 5 of our AFE students apply to become peer leaders for other first year seminar sections next year. So the person who's responsible for our first year program said, wow, I don't know what you all are doing in AFE, but those students are so enthusiastic to get the chance to be leaders among their peers. So that's been a really helpful and effective piece for us to build the networking. I don't think I mentioned, but the College of Education was also kind enough to give us a space in our main education building that the students can meet together. It's a modest space. It's a converted office area, but they've been able to decorate that. We gave them a modest budget for that. And so they can go there for study hour or something like that. They have some snacks and things in there. So that's also been very helpful for them.
Thank you all. And I think following up on that, we've had a couple questions from the audience here, and it really ties into this bigger theme that we're touching on, which is the community at large, right? Like most of all of us here come from the higher ed or the school, the teacher prep side of things, but a whole nother side of this work is, lining up those community partnerships with your districts, with the towns themselves to get this program, really up and running. So I'm going to ask a couple in a row here, just to hear your thoughts, just starting broadly, how do you work with your local communities and your local districts, in terms of recruitment as well as preparation and placement for your teachers? What do those partnerships look like? How do you form them?
I'll tell you one thing that we are about to step into. It's going to be, we've done it in a really small way, but with the additional funding, one thing that we are going to do to recruit, because it's been hard since COVID came to get kids to come back to campus. It really has been because of the ease of online. And so one of the things that I have been doing along with our dean, Dr. Miller, and I can't tell you how much the support of Rural Schools Collaborative has helped in all of this, especially in their promotions, and Haley's been featured. I've had several students. We are reaching out now to area and even as far as Baldwin County, which is the very southern part of our state. We are about to launch a huge push for teacher cadet programs. And so with these partnerships, we have been speaking to districts about if they will reinstate or start a teacher cadet program through their career tech center, that we then will pay a small stipend to even have at a middle school level, have a teacher that will start during club time or activity time to have a future teacher club. And we're looking for ways that we can have feeder patterns that then would allow us to have those freshmen or even those that are coming out of junior college come to UWA. And if they come on campus, I provide them with scholarship. I don't provide them with the same amount that I provide to my black belt because they've contracted and they are, committed to the 3 years. But we're trying to find ways to bring more students back to campus and to find those that are really interested in becoming teachers. And so that's kind of our next mission with this additional funding, is because it can be hard to recruit. And I'll tell you, one of my best recruiting, I just had a phone call this morning before I came here, is word of mouth. You cannot believe the number of teachers that I placed in schools that tell their next door teacher, who may have a student, that's coming to UWA, or they may have a paraprofessional that's decided they want to go back and get their license. I have calls every day that have been recommended from even just word of mouth. And every time that I go somewhere to speak, I always speak the language of Black Belt Teacher Corps. That may not even be what the meeting is about, but I always make sure that I speak that, because I never know in any audience that I'm approaching that they may have a connection that could lead to someone that would benefit, from this program, and then that would ultimately benefit the students of Alabama. So Teacher Corps is on our radar now, and we're going to go, kind of hard and heavy for it.
We've worked to leverage some of the relationships we have with dual credit programs to let the guidance counselors who work with us on that know about AFE. Just getting some of the superintendents and principals back on our campus and in front of our students, we think is an important piece, because then the students know these individuals, they've met these individuals before, so they're going to be, when they're looking for jobs, they're not going to have just a complete stranger that they're dealing with in some of the interviews. So those have been a couple of pieces that we've worked on. But I'm not bashful, and I've reached out to our enrollment services office to tell them about the program. They know when they see me, I'm going to be talking about AFE. I even somehow managed to get interviewed during for airing segments during halftimes of our football games on the radio station to talk about AFE. So I'm not bashful about trying to spread the word about this program, but it's something we believe in so strongly. It sells itself if we can just get the microphone or megaphone to talk about it in our region.
Yeah, I would concur with the comments that both Christopher and Susan said, that a lot of it is word of mouth, a lot of it is relationships. And so we have a lot of alumni who are either teaching or administrators in the region. And so they know about the Monmouth College Teacher Ed program, and they may or may not know about the Tartans program, but they're starting to learn about that. So, we have administrators. A few years ago, an administrator called me and said, do you have any high school Spanish teachers that you could send me? And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I do. and she now is teaching. She's from urban Chicago, and she's teaching in small town Farmington, Illinois, because he called me, and I sent her his way, and she has, as Susan said, homesteaded there. So now she has been living there. I think this is her 3rd year or perhaps 4th year. So I think that cultivating relationships, when we are out in the field observing our students, also talking to the administrators about the Teacher Ed program more generally, and then the Tartans program more specifically, is really important. Mentioning it to the teachers, and social media, I think, is really important. A lot of our alumni are connected to our educational studies Facebook page. We do have the other ones, but we're better at Facebook. And so we, when students are doing things and when they're Tartans, we always, make mention of their role as in being in the Tartans program and, explain a little bit what it is. So I think that social media can help us connect with people, because we have a lot of administrators and teachers in the region, even if they're not connected to Monmouth College, who follow our Facebook page.
Yeah, I just add to that too, a couple of things we've done most recently. One is through our admissions, they planned we have these Meet Monmouths, which is like an open call for students to come and learn about Monmouth College, but they did some special ones, and one of them was a special education, Meet Monmouth education style. And so during that Meet Monmouth, it was just students interested in education. And they came and we did a couple sessions with them, very sort of active learning, place-based. They did some things with the history of Monmouth, and we did a special escape room with all different kinds of sort of place things with respect to that, to kind of give them an idea about how they might be interacting with some of the things they would be doing in our program. And then that's also where we had a special panel. We had a Tartan, we had a Golden Apple scholar, we had a new graduate, we had somebody who had graduated, a couple of people who had graduated within 5 years. So a panel of many different folks to speak to different aspects of our program. And that was really successful. I think we had 2 students that day that deposited from that experience. Another thing I have to credit, Jenny Dickens is on the call as well, and she helps liaison with us in our area schools. And for the last couple of years, we have done, a Scots Day, be a Scot. And with the school here on, just down the street from us, and with the 6th graders, we're kind of identified that is an age group where students are kind of starting to think about things they might be interested in. And so we wanted to get them on campus as a whole. And so there's a whole day planned for the 6th graders and careers, and they do a lot of different things on campus that day. And then we also, Jenny has helped us to work with some of the English language learning families in our community, and helping them to feel like the campus is a community place as well. And so students often are showing some of their artwork and different things that they're doing here at the library, and then we invite them over and do some things. So trying to invite the students and families and groups into some collaborative relationship building events. And so we have to thank Jenny for helping us with getting those things off. And we're hoping that those will make a difference too. The more familiar the kids in the community are with the campus, and then with seeing us there as well, building those kinds of relationships will be beneficial.
Thank you all. It really reinforces for me just, how important that like self-promotion and marketing role is for folks who take on these projects. And it is really critical, right? That's why at Rural Schools Collaborative Storytelling and like working with the narrative is central to everything we do. I think we have time for a couple more questions here. And one kind of ties together some things we've been hearing from the audience as well, which is, think about your students when they go out into the field. So we're going to turn to placement a little bit, and we're fortunate to have some of those students here. What are some of the greatest challenges your students face when they first hit their, first placement? Be it housing, trying to find housing, or even transportation, or even building community in their new place. What are some of those challenges you think?
I don't want to monopolize. I'll just go this other, because I think somebody said something about housing. And I know that in talking with one of our alumni who is in charge of hiring in his district, he has talked to us about that and has tried to think of some ways to find affordable housing for new teachers. We have had some of our student teachers be able to live with community members while they're student teaching so that they didn't have to drive back and forth. And most recently, because of gas prices, we have been able to, I think, actually, I don't know if we have yet, but we've been asking for some support for our students who have to drive, within an hour there and back to some areas. And so I know housing is a big problem for some students and new teachers.
I did just want to, from the Rural Schools Collaborative perspective, also to encourage folks to kind of think outside the box a little bit to who in your community might be able to support those types of things. So we've got a few stellar folks on the call today from the Community Foundation of the Ozarks, but some of our partners that are in that community foundation world are also thinking about, we don't have our higher ed hats on, but how can we support these folks, being in our communities? And so some of our partners from the community foundations in different regions are also thinking about, can we provide some sort of stipend for them to live in these areas? And so we would like to think about how these conversations kind of ripple out from not just the higher ed space, but also to be kind of leaning in on your community resources and get creative about asking for help and identifying those needs and then kind of working together from a community oriented perspective. So shout out to community foundations or school foundations, and maybe think about looking into that as well for what's in your region and how they might be able to help support some of those kind of external pieces as well.
All right. Anybody from Alabama or Kentucky interested in what are some of the challenges your students face and how you work with them?
All of a sudden, John, Haley got so shy. And so I will let her start first. And then I'm not sure if Danielle may have had to go back to class. There she is. She's still with us. And so I'll let both of them speak to the things that were the hardest for them to do during their first year to kind of adjust to that.
I think one of the hardest things for me, my first year getting started into my career, was more so just balancing everything. Balancing becoming a new teacher, like I like to always say, becoming a real adult. And then, still keeping up with my responsibilities and my duties to, the Black Belt Teacher Corps. But having Ms. Hester as such great support, she was always there to kind of help me make sure that I was putting things in its perspective in place, as far as, making sure I put what these prioritize things. So I would have to say balancing, and I will kind of touch on what Miss Tammy said. I do know it wasn't for me personally as far as housing, but I do know that I also work with other Black Belt Teacher Corps members who necessarily didn't have a place to stay. And so one of my close friends who's a part of the program as well, she would stay with me a couple of nights a week just to avoid having to drive back and forth an hour to 10-minute drive. And then a lot of our other Black Belt Teacher Corps members who work here as well as in Livingston had to make those commutes 30 to 45-minute drives. So housing is a big thing that I see a lot of teachers, especially first year, have a challenge with.
And it's hard too when you're very rural, because a lot of these are young. I mean, they're young kids to me. And so they still want a social life, and they still, want things that, that we all experience post-college. And so even though they're not huge metropolises, 40 miles away, we have Meridian, Mississippi, which is a fairly large town and has a lot of people that age group. And then the other direction is Tuscaloosa. And so too, I think they battle that quality of life outside of school, where they might meet a spouse or where they'll make friends or have more things to do. And so I think that plays into it also in terms of housing and travel and where they choose to teach. And Danielle, what was your hardest part the first year?
It was definitely balance. I guess the hardest part was just humanizing it for me. I thought because this was my second career, my family I was in business. I have an economics degree, a 4-year economics degree as well. And my family ran a restaurant. And I thought the stress of that would prepare me for the stress of teaching. And boy, was I wrong. I felt like I was kicked, and I had to put a lot of boundaries, personal boundaries around what I would take home emotionally and work-wise, because my family, when I was student teaching, I had a place to live. I'm married and I have 2 children, but I did have to take a leave of absence as an aide. And so the aides are hugely well paid. And so that was definitely something it was a hardship in my family. I worked part-time on the weekends to make ends meet. And so I thought I was just going to be clean sailing. I'd worked in the school system. I'd worked as a head of life before teaching, but wow. And that's where like all the things that were offered through the Black Belt Scholarship, that mentorship program, I leaned on my mentor, that virtual, she probably thinks I'm half crazy, because there were times I just needed her. I would record something and say, what am I doing? And then she would say, you need to take personal time, your mental health, you need to take family time. And so it wasn't just, Danielle, this is what you need in the classroom. This is what you need to unplug this weekend and leave your book bag and your school computer at home. And you need to go be a mom and a wife for 2 days and come back Monday, and it will wait. And so that mental counseling I take with me, and I still this year put more boundaries that I didn't have last year. And I learned, and a lot of it was through that mentorship program. So I would definitely say taking a lot of my age and my years experience out of the school, still teaching's hard, and pandemic teaching, they tell me, is hard. I don't know what regular teaching is like. And I don't know if we'll ever get back to normal, but I'm thankful every day that I had a mentor, including, Miss Susan, I always could go to too, but just her giving me the opportunity to meet with someone who would say, stop and unplug. And so I learned a lot about myself.
All right. Thank you all for your comments. It's great to hear some of the things that, these teachers in their first place face, and it kind of gets us thinking about, what things we could put in place to help them. How can we build out these teacher corps to think about, past graduation? We're running short on time here. So I think one final question, we've had some great things from our audience, and I'll follow up with our panelists in email and be sure to share out some of those responses. But I think one thing that'd be kind of hopeful and constructive to leave us on is just very briefly, say in a few words or so, what is one piece of advice you would get to folks in establishing or building out their rural teacher corps program?
I would say the one thing is I've learned through this, even though I taught school for a really long time, it's just to watch these students go through the black belt and then become teachers. You realize that by offering this program, the students that you are able to touch and to help learn and to inspire, then go into schools where they become teachers, and they not only do the same thing to their students, but they also do it to their fellow teachers. And so I think it just becomes the drop in the bucket. And if you can ever just get the drop in the bucket, you will find that it just starts to multiply. And it is certainly a worthwhile and needed thing. And if you have a rural schools organization, or you're thinking of doing one, just really it's to start with that relationship, find those students that are interested in this, and then just, work together to then consolidate, make an organization. But every drop that you put in that bucket in turn goes and affects so many other lives. And I think that it's such important work, and that even the smallest of the small drop adds to the cycle of life and the influence and the experience. And so I would encourage everyone just to, jump in and get your feet wet and learn about it, and, start one in your area.
I'm a historian by training, and I just tell my students, look, it's never been easy. It's never been easy to be a teacher. It'll never be easy to be a teacher. The challenges that we face today are in some ways different than the past, but then there are these common threads that we have to look at. But you just get them to look at the difference that teachers have made in their lives, and to encourage them to be the teachers that they wish they had or that they did have for somebody else, and give them role models that they can look up to, that talk about the good things, the inspirational things, but are honest with them about the challenges. And I think they appreciate that genuineness and that honesty from people that are already in the field, but are still continuing to do the things that need to be done to prepare the next generation of students and citizens.
I'm going to just echo that Chris just said. You know, I remind my students often that we're doing really important work, and that their careers, when they're 22 and they have their idea of what their career is going to be, might not end up being that straight line path that they sort of envision for themselves. I, use my own career path as an example that was somewhat of a zigzaggy road. I started out as a high school English teacher, and I've, been always in education, but in other realms of education. I was a librarian, for example, and I let them know that that sort of zigzaggy path isn't a unhappy path, that is successful too, and that I always want visitors to our classroom from education to share their path, so that students, get this sense that there are lots of ways to be successful in education, and lots of places for people to make a difference.
And I would just add that, one of the things that I have learned a lot is when we were talking about promoting the program and this and that, the voices of your core are the strongest voices. And I think I've learned the most is to get out of their way. I mean, yes, they're new, whatever age they are, maybe to teaching or to the cohort or the teacher core, but really when we provide the support and we provide them a voice, they come up with some amazing ways to do exactly what we're trying to promote. And if we can get out of their way to uplift that narrative about rural teachers, they do a fantastic job. And it comes through in big and little ways if we give them those opportunities. So my big thing is not only, for our first year teacher corps, all the way through to our graduates and our practicing teachers. And thank you, Rural Schools Collaborative, for helping us to elevate those voices that, to get out of their way and really, let them do, what they can do, and how can we support them.
I know we're at time, but I wanted to give another round of thanks to all of our panelists today for sharing about their program, and to you all in the audience for participating as well. We'd love to hear your feedback on if this event was useful. If you have questions that didn't get answered, we'd love to kind of continue to spotlight these programs. You saw that slide that there's 17 and growing of these different efforts across the US. So please let us know if this event was helpful, and we'd love to continue to have these types of conversations with you all. John, any last thoughts you want to add before we close out?
Nothing more, just my immense thanks for our panelists and all of you for being here. Like I said, this is a great moment to come together as a learning community for rural, right? We all have that common goal in mind. So with this meeting, let's go out, do some good work, and train some teachers.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you.